Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Untitled Reviews. Now, what we're going to be taking a look at now is a gaming mouse from a manufacturer that we haven't featured in a very long time. We're going to be returning to ASUS and their marvellous ROG Gladius III, the third iteration of their modular gaming mouse. That brings with it some rather intriguing changes, such as a lower weight of 79 grams, some interchangeable hot swappable switches, and a rather competition and certainly esports ready 19,000 gaming grade DPI sensor, which really does mean that gamers are getting the full package. Of course, that package will come at a bit of a price, and at a price of $79.99 by way of dollars or pounds, I'm sure. This puts it firmly up against, Razer's current king of the esports profession, the Viper 8 kHz, and the myriads of other mice available from other manufacturers like Corsair and Logitech. And inside the box you get the Gladius 3 itself, complete with some rather nice stickers, some additional PTFE mouse feet for the bottom, interchangeable switches and kind of switch pullers / metal tweezers if you like, some documentation, a manual and a warranty card. So, onto the design front of the Gladius 3 then. Well, you could argue that by comparison to a lot of other mice, including the Razer Viper 8K and the myriads of other gaming mice on the market, that the ROG Gladius 3 is probably a little bit unremarkable. It is worth noting, though, that whilst it is majorly made of this kind of harsh plastic construction, there are these kind of smatterings of kind of the kind of gamer sharp edges and these random kind of patterns on each side of them that do help to make it a positively gamer esports type mouse if you're looking for, and it's also got these rather sharp edges. But to be honest, if you're buying a mouse just on looks, then there is something a little bit wrong. Now, one thing I will say when you've got this thing in your hand is it feels rather tall by comparison to, say, like the Razer Death Adder V2 and the Basilisk, and it's not as contoured as those other mice as well. Having a slightly taller mouse does take a little bit of getting used to, but it can mean that your hand is in a slightly less sloped position, so it can be good for ergonomics in that sense. And it's certainly backed up by the fact that ASUS have dropped the weight of this third iteration of the Gladius from 110 grams down to just 79, which actually beats off its wireless counterpart by some margin, although it's really only out-of-the-box comfort that you get with this, as there are no additional side ports, or notably, quite disappointingly from ASUS's point of view, there's no rubberized side grips on either side of this particular mouse. Instead, what it sticks with is a rather stubbornly and kind of quite hard plastic shell that, whilst it's light, is also quite narrow, meaning that this isn't really necessarily the best mouse for those with specifically wide hands, although mine do struggle to fit all the fingers on in a rather comfortable way. Although, one thing I will say, button placement on the ROG Gladius 3 is largely intuitive. It opts for this more minimalistic style, choosing to work with literally just the bare essentials, as opposed to your standard two mouse buttons, the two that are on the side for going forwards and backwards, the DPI switch that's nicely hidden on the top as well, although the button for profiles, which you can see there, is notably on the bottom. That was a gripe I had with Razer's Viper 8K, the fact they've chosen to put the profile button on the bottom, although to be honest you could argue that's a good thing, as it prevents any specific mishits. Even though this is a mouse primarily aimed at the proper esports gamer, there is also a notable lack of any DPI clutch, so that is, you can push the button down so it lowers the sensitivity momentarily if you're lining up a specific shot as a sniper, for instance, in Counter-Strike, or things like that. But quite intriguingly, just to try and make this a proper esports ready mouse, to try and make up for the lack of any form of DPI clutch or those more gaming grade features, what ASUS have done, I will say, is included these additional PTFE mouse feet, so you can put those on if the ones on the bottom ever wear out. It's really there for the sake of future-proofing, but I will say the ones that are already installed on this particular mouse do give it this fantastic glide, which makes it ideal for those esports gamers that ASUS are perhaps looking to target with the Gladius 3. So, onto the side of performance, and of course it's no use having a mouse that doesn't perform very well, even if it certainly looks the part. Now, one thing that the Gladius line, over its few years of development now, has brought to the party when it comes to kind of quirks and features that other mice certainly haven't, is the ability to swap switches out. It was there on the original one and the second iteration, and this third one is no different. The Gladius 3, of course, has been built upon this foundation of internal customization. Now, what ASUS do in the box, as you've seen on the previous section, is they bundle in some additional Omron switches that come in a little bag, although they're actually the ones that I've currently got on the mouse themselves, just to test them out, although I have tested both sets out. And the ones that ASUS actually bundle originally in the box and in the mouse itself are rather silent indeed, although what you can see, if I just kind of bring these up behind the camera in the hope that the camera wants to focus on these, you can see there they are certainly very tiny. I have had to bring them in quite a way, but essentially the whole process for putting these on the mouse is that you unscrew. There's two little pads on the underside that you unscrew, and you can take the entire top of the mouse off instead, and you use the little tweezers that you get bundled to take one switch out, put it back in, take the other one, put it back in, and put it all back together. It's really that easy. It's what's known as a hot swappable in the peripheral industry. You'll certainly see it with a lot of keyboards, those kind of more enthusiast grade keyboards that you can get hot swappable PCBs that you can essentially put any switches in without any need for soldering, and ASUS have certainly brought that to the masses here with the Gladius 3. Now, as well as including some rather nice physical customization when it comes to the switch front, that's only one side of the story here, and of course, given that this mouse is designed for the esports professional, it's really little surprise that ASUS have really made the Gladius 3 on the properly internal side a mouse designed just for them. It comes out the box with a 19,000 DPI sensor that is actually finally giving Razer a run for their money with their Focus Plus 20,000 DPI sensor. Although what I will say, within the included ROG Armory software that we'll get onto in a couple of minutes, that is actually upgradable to 26,000 DPI, which supersedes Razer by quite some way, and probably makes this one of the most, if not the most sensitive mouse I have probably ever used indeed. It is absolutely incredible mouse to use for gaming, just if you can get past the fact that it's not one of the most comfortable mice that I've ever used. But it's ideally, the fact it's an ideal esports companion certainly becomes apparent when you pair it with the fact that it's got this 79 gram weight that certainly makes it rather nimble indeed. One thing, of course, whilst there is a wireless variant of the Gladius 3, this one is, of course, truly wired indeed. The older iterations used to come with a detachable cable, but ASUS seem to have ditched that with this third version, and the fact it's wired means that it's not plagued by any latency issues. Although what I will say at this juncture is that if you do want the wireless version, this does have Bluetooth 5.1 support and 2.4 GHz wireless, as well as having that detachable cable for charging that the wired version used to have many years ago. So, onto the out-of-the-box lighting side of affairs. Well, usually this would scroll around with multiple different colours, but in an attempt to make the camera focus on it entirely, we've just got it set to red, just so you can see the brightness. Apologies for the fact there's a little bit of a lack of contrast, but this probably shows the lighting in its best light, and also the fact that red is probably ASUS's signature colour, where Razer's is green, and so on and so forth. Now, whilst you've probably seen in the previous sections that there's been some rather major changes to the design and the performance of the Gladius 3, it's really on the out-of-the-box lighting side of affairs where the most noticeable ones have been made. Like for instance, the ROG Gladius 2 featured this rather nice atmospheric underglow on the bottom as well, but that's certainly been gone and replaced by, to be honest, this rather piddly set of 3 lighting zones that the Gladius 3 uses, namely the scroll wheel, the ROG logo, and this really kind of strange lettering on the left-hand side where the lighting actually doesn't fully cover all of the characters. I mean, it looks okay, it's quite cool, but it doesn't really help to light the mouse up. They'd have better off just been putting it as 2 lighting zones and having that one as a little bit of a bonus. The lighting, though, I will say one thing, when turned up to 11, if you like, is nicely sharp and bright. It's probably not like entirely up there with Razer's Chroma and whatnot, but to be honest, for a mouse that's this money, it's not really backlighting you're buying it for. It's the kind of wholesale amount of performance. So, onto the software side of things. Well, at this point, it's worth noting that the ASUS ROG Gladius 3 makes use of ASUS's Armory Crate software that actually can be seen, on the whole, to be a rather intuitive and simple piece of software to use. Certainly when it comes to design and layout as well, although I can't necessarily help but think that it lacks the suaveness of say Logitech's G Hub or Razer's Synapse 3, although more on that later. When it comes to what you can actually do with the ROG Gladius 3, thanks to pairing it with Armoury Crate, you'll be surprised that there's a whole load of functions that you can actually do. So one of the premier things that you can do is when it comes to buttons. So for instance, if we take this right mouse button here, you'll see that you can fiddle with mouse functions, map it to keyboards. If you so wish to, program macros, multimedia keys, link to any Windows shortcuts, input any preset text you might, even going down to like taking screenshots or disabling the button completely, as well as putting it into stealth mode. This is also true not only for the top buttons, but also the forwards and backwards ones on the left hand side. Now, onto the side of performance then. Well, it's in here where you can choose between your 4 stages for the Gladius 3, going not only from the 19,000 that comes out of the box, but also cranking this up to the 26,000 DPI that I've alluded to in the past, which is really where this ROG Gladius 3 gets its kind of proper esports credentials. You can also fiddle with the polling rate from anything from 125 to 1,000, as well as changing the button response time. So if you wanted to make any buttons particularly slower to right the way down to 32 milliseconds from 12, then you can as well. And there's also some angle snapping, which if you turn it on means you might be able to turn sharp corners that little bit quicker. Of course, gaming software in here also allows you to fiddle with lighting. There's all these myriads of basic effects, from static to breathing to partitioning and rainbows and comets and all that sort of thing, that help to make the Gladius 3 look a rather nice bit of kit indeed. Also, when you get the option on to install Armoury Crate, you also get the option to install ASUS's Aura Creator, which fundamentally operates in a similar way to Razer's Chroma Studio and allows you to fiddle with the lighting of your mouse or any peripherals in any way you like as well. Much like Razer's Synapse, Armoury Crate here for the ROG Gladius allows you to fiddle with and calibrate your mouse to any particular service. So if it's like the ROG Strix Edge Call of Duty Black Ops 4 then mouse mount, then you can do that as well. Or if you just want to calibrate it to a surface that isn't listed to give you the best performance possible, then you can use the manual calibration as well. And there's also the option to change your lift-off distance between low and high. It's rather simple, just click some buttons, and there's also smart calibration as well. Also, if there's any firmware updates you need to do, then you can do that in Armoury Crate as well. And now, just an aside, there's also another couple of bits. So with Aura Sync, if you want to sync the lighting on your Gladius 3 to any other Aura-enabled devices, then that can be done as well. There's also the options to map things to say your game libraries, pick profiles dependent upon your scenario, and ASUS also feature a featured and a news tab that helps keep you aware of any offers and stuff as well, meaning that really, when it's used correctly, Armoury Crate can be seen to be an ideal companion, not only for your Gladius 3 mouse, but also any other peripherals and basically your entire PC as well. So, in conclusion then, is the ASUS ROG Gladius 3 worth a pickup? Well, if you're somebody who likes a fair amount of internal customization, the fact that the ROG Gladius 3 has some hot swappable switches means that this mouse will be right up your alley. And of course, if you're looking to be rather esports ready, the fact that this makes use of 26,000 DPI's worth of sensitivity means this is a prime option for those esports and competitive gamers out there. And also, if you're somebody who wants some decently bright lighting, that's also adjustable and rather customizable within software, then this is a decent mouse for you as well. And so what I will say as a bit of a concluding statement is that whilst the Gladius 3 does feature some features that gamers will absolutely adore, like that 26,000 DPI sensor and some decent enough lighting, the fact that it omits some rather key features that usual esports players will know and utilize to the maximum, like that DPI clutch, does mean that it probably can't be considered one of the most esports ready gaming mice on the market today. And also, one thing I will say is that if you're wanting something wireless, whilst there is a wireless option of the Gladius 3 available, there's plenty of other mice from everybody from Logitech to Mad Catz and stuff that you can find on this channel as well. But overall, the Gladius 3, a pretty decent mouse for a relatively decent price that's got some features that gamers should rather like indeed. And really, all that remains to be said is that if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe to the channel and to ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads on this particular channel. to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Links should be appearing on the screen right about now. And to check out the blog in the description as well. There should be some posts down there that we hope you find interesting and engaging. And just one small side note, down in the description you'll also find links to an Untitled Teespring store, well now Spring, where you can pick up some rather marvellous Untitled merchandise, be it t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, wall art, mugs, you name it, it's probably down there as well. And the fact they ship worldwide is absolutely brilliant as well. And of course, if you like any of the kit that we feature in these videos, be it this particular ROG Gladius 3 or any of the other myriads of mice, keyboards, headsets, phones, and multimedia controllers that we've featured over the last 18 months, the last couple of years, then there'll be Amazon links down in the description to those where you can pick them up. So thank you very much for watching.